Excuse me, this section is for first-class passengers only. The welfare line starts back there. Victoria Blackwell's voice cut through the morning chaos of LAX Terminal 6 like a perfectly manicured blade. She didn't whisper it. She didn't glance around nervously. She looked directly at the young black woman in the navy sweater and delivered the insult like it was airline policy. What Victoria didn't know was that in exactly 12 minutes, the woman she just tried to humiliate would shut down every Skybridge Airlines flight in North America with a single text message. Before we dive into this incredible true story of power justice and instant karma, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments below. And if you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that subscribe button because this story will remind you that quiet dignity can move mountains. Now let me take you back to 7:42 a.m. on a crisp Tuesday morning at Los Angeles International Airport. The departure hall buzzed with its usual symphony of rolling luggage gate announcements and travelers rushing to catch their flights. Gate 47 was busier than usual with Skybridge Airlines Flight 892 to Boston running slightly behind schedule due to a minor technical issue that had been resolved. In the first-class boarding lane marked by elegant red ropes and a pristine carpet stood several passengers waiting for the priority boarding call. There was Victoria Blackwell, 38, resplendent in her fitted cream Chanel blazer and silk camisole, her blonde hair swept into a perfect chignon. Diamond tennis bracelet caught the terminal lights as she adjusted her oversized Hermes bag. Next to her stood Brandon Cole, a businessman in an expensive charcoal suit, checking his Rolex with the impatience of someone accustomed to being catered to. Behind the gate podium, Derek Martinez surveyed his domain like a general inspecting troops. At 45, Derek had spent 15 years working his way up from baggage handler to gate supervisor, and he wore his authority like armor. His uniform was pressed to military precision, his posture rigid, his expression stern. He took pride in maintaining order and keeping the wrong people out of the wrong places. What none of them noticed was the quiet confidence of the woman approaching the first-class lane. She moved with purpose but without urgency, her white sneakers silent against the terminal floor. Her navy cashmere sweater was expensive but understated her dark jeans perfectly fitted but not flashy. She carried a simple black leather backpack that cost more than most people's monthly salary, though no logos announced this fact. As she stepped onto the red carpet of the priority lane, the morning chaos seemed to pause. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Derek's hand moved instinctively toward his radio. Brandon stopped checking his watch and started watching the scene unfold. None of them knew they were about to witness the most expensive 12 minutes in aviation history. Maya Richardson adjusted the strap of her backpack and took a slow breath of the recycled terminal air. At 32, she had learned to move through the world with deliberate calm, especially when exhaustion threatened to crack her composure. She had been awake for 36 straight hours, flying from renewable energy negotiations in Dubai to a crucial board meeting in Manhattan, and now finally heading home to Boston where her penthouse apartment overlooked the harbor and her real life waited. The negotiations had been brutal but successful. Her company, Richardson Global Holdings, had just secured a $2.8 billion wind energy deal that would power half of the Pacific Northwest within 5 years. The contracts were signed. The press releases were scheduled, and Maya had personally overseen every detail from the legal framework to the environmental impact studies. It was the kind of deal that would make headlines in the Wall Street Journal, but Maya preferred to let her results speak rather than her publicity team. She had bought Skybridge Airlines 18 months ago, not as an investment, but as a mission. The airline had been hemorrhaging money due to a toxic company culture that treated customers like cattle and employees like expendable resources. Maya saw potential where others saw problems, and she had quietly begun transforming the company from the inside out. New employee benefits, updated training programs, modernized fleet, and most importantly, a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination that she had personally written into every employee handbook. But policy on paper and culture in practice were two different things, which was why Maya made these anonymous test flights. She would book first-class tickets under her real name dressed down to blend in and experience her airline the way any other passenger would. Today's flight was supposed to be routine Boston to Los Angeles for meetings, then back home on the red-eye. She had specifically chosen to dress casually to see if her employees would treat her with the same respect they showed the obviously wealthy passengers. As she approached Gate 47, Maya noticed the usual airport ecosystem in full display. Business travelers clutched their phones like lifelines, families corralled restless children, and the gate agents managed the controlled chaos with varying degrees of competence. Flight 892 was one of Skybridge's premium routes, featuring the airline's newest Boeing 787 with lie-flat seats in first class and upgraded amenities throughout. Maya had personally approved the route expansion and aircraft selection, though none of the employees here would recognize her without her usual business attire and entourage. Her boarding pass was legitimate. Seat 1A first class purchased at full price through the regular booking system. No special codes, no employee discounts, just a standard $15,000 ticket that reflected the premium service Skybridge promised. Maya had deliberately avoided using any of her executive privileges or having her assistant book the flight. She wanted the authentic passenger experience, both good and bad. The vintage Rolex Submariner on her wrist was the only hint of her true status, though it was mostly hidden by her sweater sleeve. She had inherited it from her grandmother, a woman who had cleaned office buildings at night to put Maya's mother through college. The watch reminded Maya where she came from and why she fought so hard to create opportunities for others. Maya's phone buzzed with updates from her team. Alex Rivera, her COO, was monitoring quarterly reports from their Tokyo office. Rebecca Torres, head of security, was overseeing a routine audit of their Miami hub. The company ran smoothly, even when Maya was traveling, which was exactly how she had designed it. She believed in empowering her executives to make decisions, but she also believed in holding everyone accountable for their choices. As she stepped into the first-class boarding lane, Maya felt the familiar weight of being watched. She had experienced this scenario dozens of times throughout her life. The skeptical glances when she entered high-end restaurants, the double takes when she pulled up to exclusive resorts in her Aston Martin, the subtle challenges when she walked into boardrooms full of older white men who assumed she was someone's assistant rather than the person signing their paychecks. Maya had learned not to react with anger or indignation. Anger was a luxury she couldn't afford, and a weapon her opponents could use against her. Instead, she had developed a different strategy document. Everything respond strategically and use their prejudice against them. She had built her empire by staying 3 steps ahead of people who underestimated her, and today would be no different. The morning sun streamed through the terminal windows, casting long shadows across the gate area. Maya checked her watch, 7:43 a.m. Boarding was scheduled to begin in 2 minutes. She had specifically chosen an early flight to minimize disruptions, though she was beginning to suspect that disruption might find her regardless. Her phone displayed 17 missed calls from her assistant, 4 text messages from board members, and 2 urgent emails from reporters wanting comments on the renewable energy deal. Maya ignored them all. For the next few hours, she wanted to be just another passenger experiencing her airline through the eyes of someone who wasn't supposed to own the plane they were boarding. As she stood quietly in line, Maya reviewed her mental checklist. Valid ticket, appropriate documentation, calm demeanor, and phone ready to document anything that went wrong. She had hoped this flight would be different, that the training programs and policy changes were actually working. But experience had taught her to prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. Maya took her place in the first-class boarding lane behind Victoria Blackwell and Brandon Cole, maintaining the respectful distance that airport etiquette demanded. She pulled out her phone to review emails while waiting, but kept her attention on the gate agent preparations. Derek Martinez was speaking with Jessica Palmer, a young blonde woman in a crisp uniform who kept glancing nervously at the growing line of passengers. "Remember?" Jessica Derek's voice carried across the gate area. "We maintain standards here. First class is for our premium customers. If someone looks like they don't belong, they probably don't." Maya's eyebrows rose slightly, but she continued scrolling through her phone. She had heard variations of this speech before, usually delivered by managers who confuse discrimination with customer service. Victoria turned around, her ice blue eyes scanning Maya from head to toe with undisguised disdain. The diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist caught the morning light as she raised her hand to adjust her sunglasses, though the gesture seemed calculated to display her wealth. "Excuse me?" Victoria's voice dripped with condescension. "This section is for first-class passengers only. The welfare line starts back there." Maya looked up from her phone meeting, Victoria's gaze with calm brown eyes that revealed nothing of the storm brewing beneath the surface. "I have a boarding pass for this section," Maya replied evenly, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being heard. Victoria's perfectly glossed lips curved into a smirk. "Honey, that ticket costs more than you make in a year. Trust me, you're in the wrong place." Brandon Cole turned to watch the exchange, his expression suggesting he was enjoying the entertainment. "Some people try to sneak into first class all the time," he said to Victoria, though his voice was loud enough for Maya to hear. "They think if they act confident enough, nobody will check." Derek Martinez approached, drawn by the commotion like a moth to flame. His chest puffed out as he positioned himself between Maya and the boarding gate, his hand resting on his radio with theatrical authority. "Is there a problem here?" Derek asked, though his tone suggested he had already decided where the problem originated. Victoria gestured elegantly toward Maya. "This person is in the wrong boarding lane. She needs to be directed to economy class where she belongs." Maya remained perfectly still, her phone still in her hand, thumb hovering over the camera app. "Mr. Martinez," she said, reading his name tag with deliberate precision. "I have a valid boarding pass for seat 1A. Would you like to scan it?" Derek's eyes narrowed as he took in Maya's casual attire, her backpack, her sneakers. 15 years of airport experience had taught him to make quick judgments, and those judgments were rarely kind to people who didn't look like his idea of a first-class passenger. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step away from this area before I call security," Derek announced, his voice carrying across the gate area. Several other passengers turned to watch phones already emerging from pockets and purses. "This lane is reserved for our premium customers." "I am a premium customer," Maya replied, her voice steady despite the growing audience. "Scan my boarding pass and you'll see." Jessica Palmer stepped forward, eager to support her supervisor. "Sir, should I call for backup?" "She seems agitated." Maya hadn't raised her voice, hadn't made any threatening gestures, hadn't done anything except stand quietly in line with a valid ticket. But Jessica's comment painted a different picture, one designed to justify whatever came next. "I'm not agitated," Maya said calmly. "I'm simply requesting that you do your job and scan my boarding pass." Victoria laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the terminal noise. "Oh, this is rich. Acting like you own the place when you can't even afford a proper handbag." Brandon nodded in agreement. "The entitlement is unbelievable. Some people think they deserve things they haven't earned." Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. Without looking at it, she knew it would be from her security team, who monitored news feeds and social media for any mention of Richardson Global Holdings or its subsidiaries. If this confrontation was already attracting attention online, her team would be preparing for damage control. Derek stepped closer, using his height and uniform to intimidate. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time to move to the appropriate boarding area. If you refuse, I'll have no choice but to involve law enforcement. And I'm going to ask you one more time to scan my boarding pass." Maya replied, her voice dropping to a register that somehow carried more authority than Derek's bluster. "It's a simple request that would resolve this entire situation." From the economy line, a teenage girl with purple streaks in her hair had started recording on her phone. Emma Rodriguez was a college student flying home to Boston for spring break, and she had a TikTok account with 50,000 followers who loved drama. This confrontation was exactly the kind of content that went viral, and Emma had the good sense to start filming early. Dr. James Patterson, a distinguished elderly gentleman waiting in the premium line, cleared his throat diplomatically. "Excuse me, but why don't you simply scan the young lady's pass? It would take 30 seconds and resolve any confusion." Victoria whirled around to face him. "Dr. Patterson, surely you can see she's clearly not supposed to be in this line. Look at her clothing. Look at her attitude. I see a well-dressed woman with a boarding pass asking for normal customer service." Dr. Patterson replied mildly, "Nothing more. Nothing less." Derek's face flushed red. Having passengers question his authority was bad enough, but having them side with someone he was trying to remove was intolerable. "Sir, I'll handle this situation. Please return to your place in line." Maya watched the dynamics play out with the strategic mind that had built her empire. Derek was motivated by ego and prejudice. Victoria was driven by entitlement and insecurity. Jessica was following orders without thinking. Brandon was enjoying the show. Dr. Patterson was the only one guided by basic decency. She pulled up her boarding pass on her phone, the QR code clear and readable. "Mr. Martinez, this is my final offer. Scan this pass, confirm I belong in this line, and we can all board the plane like civilized adults." Derek glanced at the phone screen but didn't move to scan it. "I don't need to scan anything to know you're in the wrong place. Your whole vibe is wrong for first class." Victoria nodded approvingly. "Exactly. There's a certain class of person who flies first class, and you're clearly not it." Maya's thumb moved to her text messages, quickly typing Alex. Protocol 7, standby. Rebecca, monitor news feeds. Legal. Prep discrimination case. The responses came back within seconds. Alex, copy. IT forensics ready. What's your location? Rebecca, already monitoring LAX Gate 47, trending on social media. Legal standing by. Do you need immediate assistance? Maya typed back. Not yet. Documenting everything. Derek's radio crackled to life. Gate 47, this is operations. We're ready to begin boarding on your signal. Derek grabbed his radio. Operations, we have a situation at the gate. Unauthorized passenger refusing to move to economy. May need security assistance. Maya looked directly into Derek's eyes. Mr. Martinez, you're making a mistake. Scan the boarding pass. The only mistake, Derek replied loudly enough for everyone to hear, is you thinking you can intimidate your way into first class. But that's not how we do things at Skybridge Airlines. Derek Martinez keyed his radio again, his voice taking on the authoritative tone he used when he wanted to remind everyone who was in charge. Security to Gate 47. We have an uncooperative passenger attempting to board inappropriately. The announcement echoed through the terminal, drawing even more attention to the growing confrontation. Maya remained perfectly still, but her mind was racing through calculations. Every word, every action, every witness was being catalogued for what she increasingly understood would be a much larger reckoning. Victoria Blackwell stepped forward, emboldened by Derek's show of authority. Finally, someone with backbone. I was beginning to think customer service was dead at this airline. Mrs. Blackwell, we always take care of our valued passengers. Derek replied, his tone warm and deferential in stark contrast to how he had spoken to Maya. I apologize for this disruption. We'll have this resolved momentarily. Brandon Cole checked his Rolex with theatrical impatience. This is exactly why I usually fly private. You can't count on airlines to maintain proper standards anymore. Emma Rodriguez had moved closer, her phone still recording as her TikTok live stream gained viewers. The comments section was exploding with reactions as people tuned in to watch the confrontation unfold in real time. Y'all seeing this? She whispered to her phone. This is crazy. Jessica Palmer approached Derek with a clipboard, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "Sir, I've checked the passenger manifest. There's no listing for—" She glanced at Maya. "For anyone matching her description in first class." Maya's eyebrows rose slightly. The manifest lie was a new development, and it changed the game entirely. "That's interesting," she said calmly. "Could you show me that manifest?" "Ma'am, passenger manifests are confidential airline documents," Derek replied smugly. "I don't need to show you anything except the way to economy class." Dr. Patterson stepped forward again, his medical training making him uncomfortable with the obvious injustice. "Young man, this has gone far enough. The lady has shown you a boarding pass. Either scan it or explain why you won't." "Dr. Patterson, with all due respect, this doesn't concern you," Victoria snapped. "Some of us have important places to be, and we can't afford delays because someone is trying to game the system." "The only person causing delays," Dr. Patterson replied with growing firmness, "is the gate agent who refuses to do his job." Maya's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Alex Rivera. She declined it but sent a quick text. "Live streaming now. Legal implications growing. Prepare full response." The response was immediate. "Copy. Rebecca mobilizing crisis team." "Do you want us to intervene?" Maya typed back. "Negative. Let them hang themselves." Derek's radio crackled again. "Gate 47 security en route. ETA 2 minutes." Derek smiled with satisfaction. "You hear that security is coming, and when they get here you're going to have much bigger problems than missing your flight." "What problems would those be?" Maya asked, her voice carrying a dangerous quiet that made several passengers step back instinctively. "I have a valid ticket, valid identification, and I've made no threats or aggressive moves. What exactly am I guilty of?" Jessica Palmer consulted her clipboard again, attempting to board, fraudulently disrupting airline operations, and refusing to follow crew instructions. "I haven't refused anything," Maya replied. "I've repeatedly asked you to scan my boarding pass, which would prove I have every right to be here. You're the ones refusing to follow standard procedures." Victoria's voice rose with indignation. "This is harassment. You're making paying customers uncomfortable with your presence. That should be enough to remove you." Brandon nodded vigorously. "Absolutely. The rest of us shouldn't have to deal with this drama because someone can't accept reality." Emma's live stream had grown to over 8,000 viewers, with comments flooding in from around the world. She read a few out loud. "Someone says this looks like discrimination. Another person asking if this is really happening. Oh, wow. Someone recognized the gate number and says they're calling the airline to complain." Derek spun around to face Emma. "Hey, you can't record in this area without permission." "Actually, I can," Emma replied, holding up her phone. "We're in a public space, and I have every right to document what I'm seeing." Maya watched Derek's growing panic with clinical interest. His authority was being challenged from multiple directions, and he was making increasingly desperate moves to regain control. Each escalation would make the eventual resolution more devastating. Sophie Kim, a travel blogger with over 200,000 Instagram followers, had been quietly observing from the nearby Starbucks. She approached the scene with her professional camera, snapping photos of the confrontation from multiple angles. Her followers were always hungry for travel industry drama, and this situation was golden content. "Excuse me," Derek barked at Sophie. "This is an active security situation. You need to move back." "I'm a credentialed travel journalist," Sophie replied calmly, showing her press badge. "I have every right to document this interaction." Victoria was becoming increasingly agitated as she realized the situation was spiraling beyond her control. "This is insane. Why are we all being punished because one person won't accept she doesn't belong here?" Dr. Patterson had reached his limit. "Mrs. Blackwell, you've been nothing but rude and presumptuous since this began. Perhaps you should examine your own behavior before criticizing others." "How dare you!" Victoria shrieked. I am a Diamond Medallion member. I've been flying first class longer than she's been alive. Maya finally spoke, her voice cutting through the noise with surgical precision. Mrs. Blackwell, Mr. Martinez, you're both making assumptions based on my appearance rather than the facts. That's called discrimination, and it's not only morally wrong, it's legally actionable. Derek stepped closer, trying to use his physical presence to intimidate. Are you threatening to sue the airline? Because that sounds like extortion to me. I'm not threatening anything, Maya replied calmly. I'm stating facts. You've refused to provide normal customer service based on racial profiling. Every word has been recorded by multiple witnesses and broadcast live to thousands of people. The facts speak for themselves. Security officers appeared at the gate, two uniformed men with serious expressions and professional demeanor. Officer Williams, a veteran with 20 years of airport experience, approached the group with cautious authority. What seems to be the problem here? Officer Williams asked, his eyes scanning the crowd for threats. Derek immediately launched into his version of events. Officer, this woman is attempting to board first class without proper documentation. She's been disruptive and threatening, and she's refusing to move to the appropriate boarding area. Officer Williams looked at Maya, noting her calm demeanor and non-threatening posture. Ma'am, could I see your boarding pass and identification? Maya handed over her phone and driver's license without hesitation. Of course, officer. Seat 1. Purchased yesterday through the airline's website. Officer Williams examined the documents carefully, then looked at Derek with obvious confusion. This appears to be a legitimate first-class ticket. Why haven't you scanned it to confirm Derek's face flushed deeper red? Officer, we have protocols for identifying suspicious passengers. Sometimes the documentation looks legitimate, but there are other red flags. What red flags? Officer Williams asked pointedly. Victoria jumped in before Derek could respond. Officer, look at her. Does she look like someone who can afford a $15,000 ticket? She's obviously using a stolen credit card or fake documentation. Officer Williams turned to Victoria with a stern expression. Ma'am, I need you to step back and let me handle this situation. Maya watched the exchange with growing satisfaction. Each escalation, each assumption, each recorded moment was building toward a conclusion that would transform not just this incident, but the entire culture that had enabled it. Officer Williams handed Maya's identification back to her and turned to address Derek Martinez directly. Sir, this passenger has valid documentation. I need you to explain why you won't process her boarding pass. Derek's military posture began to crack under the scrutiny. 15 years of unchecked authority at various gates had taught him that most passengers would back down when faced with official resistance. Maya Richardson was proving to be a very different kind of passenger. Officer, we have internal protocols about suspicious passengers. Derek began, his voice taking on a rehearsed quality. Sometimes people obtain documentation through fraudulent means, and we're trained to identify potential security threats. Maya's phone buzzed with another update from her team. Rebecca Torres, her head of security, was monitoring news feeds and social media in real time. The message was brief, but telling: LAX discrimination trending nationwide. CNN picking up story. Legal team ready to move. What specifically makes this passenger suspicious? Officer Williams pressed his tone, growing more skeptical of Derek's explanations. Jessica Palmer stepped forward with her clipboard, eager to support her supervisor's position. Officer, we've had several incidents recently with people attempting to use stolen credit cards to purchase premium tickets. We have to be vigilant. Has anyone actually checked if her credit card was stolen? Dr. Patterson interjected from the side. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to cutting through bureaucratic nonsense. Or are you just assuming based on her appearance? Victoria Blackwell whirled around to face Dr. Patterson, her diamond bracelet catching the light as she gestured angrily. Dr. Patterson, you're being naive. Some people are professional scammers. They know how to present themselves just well enough to fool people like you. Emma Rodriguez continued live streaming, her viewer count climbing past 12,000 as the confrontation escalated. The comment section was a mix of outrage support and demands for justice. "This is absolutely crazy," she whispered to her followers. "This woman has done nothing wrong and they're treating her like a criminal." Brandon Cole checked his watch again, his impatience growing theatrical. "Officer, how long is this going to take? Some of us have legitimate business to attend to." Maya finally spoke, her voice carrying a quiet authority that made everyone pause. "Officer Williams, I'd like to file a formal complaint for discrimination and harassment. These employees have repeatedly refused to provide standard customer service based solely on racial profiling." Derek's radio crackled with an incoming message from operations. "Gate 47. What's your status?" "We're ready to begin boarding." Derek grabbed his radio with obvious relief. "Operations. We have a security situation with an uncooperative passenger, requesting permission to deny boarding." Maya's eyes narrowed slightly. The request to deny boarding was a serious escalation that crossed into federal aviation law. "Officer Williams, I need you to document that request. Denying boarding to a passenger with valid documentation without cause is a federal offense." Officer Williams nodded and pulled out his notepad. "Sir, I need you to state clearly why you're requesting to deny boarding to this passenger." Derek realized he had painted himself into a corner. He couldn't admit that his decision was based on racial profiling, but he also couldn't provide any legitimate security concerns. His response came out as desperate deflection. "She's been threatening airline employees and disrupting operations. She's created a hostile environment for other passengers." Maya pulled up the voice recording app on her phone, which had been running since the confrontation began. "Officer, I have audio documentation of this entire interaction. At no point did I threaten anyone or create disruption. I repeatedly asked for normal customer service and was denied." Sophie Kim stepped forward with her professional camera, speaking to Officer Williams directly. "Officer, I'm Sophie Kim, travel journalist for several major publications. I've documented this entire incident and I can confirm that Ms. Richardson has been nothing but polite and professional throughout this harassment." Victoria's composure was beginning to crack as she realized the situation was spiraling beyond her control. "This is ridiculous. Why are we all being held hostage because one person refuses to accept reality?" "What reality is that, Mrs. Blackwell?" Maya asked quietly. "The reality that some people belong in first class and some people don't." Victoria snapped her carefully maintained facade, finally slipping. "There's a natural order to things, and pretending otherwise just creates chaos." The moment those words left Victoria's mouth, the entire terminal seemed to freeze. Emma's live stream exploded with comments as viewers reacted to the blatant admission of classist and racist thinking. Sophie Kim's camera captured Victoria's expression of immediate regret as she realized what she had just said on camera. Officer Williams made notes on his pad, his expression growing more serious. "Ma'am, that statement suggests you believe certain people shouldn't have access to services based on appearance rather than ability to pay." Brandon Cole tried to salvage the situation for Victoria. "Officer Mrs. Blackwell didn't mean it that way. She's just frustrated by the delay." "I meant exactly what I said," Victoria declared, her anger overriding her judgment. "Some people need to know their place, and when they get ideas above their station, it creates problems for everyone else." Maya looked directly at Officer Williams. "Officer, I believe you now have clear evidence of the discrimination I've experienced here. I'd like to proceed with filing formal charges." Derek's radio crackled again. "Gate 47 Corporate is online too. They want an immediate status update." Derek's face went pale. Corporate attention during a gate incident was never good news, especially when passengers were filing discrimination complaints. "Officer, can we resolve this quietly? I'm sure we can work something out." "The time for quiet resolution was 20 minutes ago when I asked you to scan my boarding pass," Maya replied calmly. Now we're in federal discrimination territory with multiple witnesses and live documentation. Jessica Palmer was now visibly nervous, realizing that supporting Derek's position might have career implications. Sir, maybe we should just scan her pass and see what happens. Derek shot her a withering look. Jessica, don't second-guess my decisions. We follow protocols here. Dr. Patterson had heard enough. Young man, your protocols appear to be discriminatory and possibly illegal. I suggest you reconsider your position before this becomes an even bigger problem. Maya's phone rang with an incoming call from Alex Rivera. This time, she answered, putting the phone on speaker so Officer Williams could hear. Maya, this is Alex. I'm monitoring the live streams and news coverage. We need to know if you want us to intervene directly or continue documenting. Derek's eyes widened as he heard Maya addressed by name and realized there might be more to this passenger than he had assumed. Wait, who exactly are you? Maya looked directly at Derek, her voice carrying a new edge. I'm the person you should have treated with basic human dignity from the beginning. But since you're asking now, I'm Maya Richardson. Recognition flickered across Derek's face, but he couldn't quite place the name. Victoria, however, had gone completely white as the pieces began falling into place. Emma Rodriguez's live stream had exploded past 25,000 viewers as word spread across social media platforms. Her TikTok followers were sharing the stream to Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, creating a viral moment that was growing exponentially by the minute. Oh my God, you guys, Emma whispered to her phone, trying to keep her voice low while maintaining the video feed. This is absolutely insane. The comments are going crazy. Someone just said they recognized the name Maya Richardson from Business News. The comment section of her stream was a river of reactions, with viewers from around the world tuning in to witness the confrontation. Messages ranged from outrage at the discrimination to speculation about Maya's identity, with several users claiming to recognize her from financial media appearances. Sophie Kim had switched to live blogging on her Instagram account, posting rapid-fire updates to her 200,000 followers. Her professional photos of the incident were being reshared across travel industry accounts and civil rights organizations, amplifying the story beyond just airport drama. Breaking discrimination incident at LAX Gate 47, she typed. Well-dressed black woman denied boarding despite valid first-class ticket. Gate agent refuses to scan boarding pass. Full discrimination caught on camera. This is not okay. Hashtag travel while black. Hashtag airport discrimination. Hashtag Skybridge Airlines. Her post received over 5,000 likes and 800 comments within minutes, with followers sharing their own stories of travel discrimination and demanding accountability from Skybridge Airlines. Dr. Patterson had quietly pulled out his own phone and was recording from a different angle, his medical ethics training making him acutely aware of the need to document injustice when he witnessed it. As a physician who had treated patients from every background imaginable, he found the blatant discrimination morally reprehensible. This is Dr. James Patterson at LAX Terminal 6. He spoke quietly into his phone. I'm witnessing clear discrimination against a passenger who has valid documentation but is being denied service based on appearance. The gate agent has refused multiple requests to simply scan her boarding pass. Maya's phone continued buzzing with updates from her team. Rebecca Torres was monitoring social media trends in real time, watching as hashtag Skybridge discrimination and hashtag LAX Gate 47 began trending nationally. The story was being picked up by major news outlets, civil rights organizations, and travel industry publications. Alex Rivera sent a text update. CNN wants a statement. Wall Street Journal is calling. Legal team ready to file federal discrimination charges. IT Forensics has identified pattern of complaints against this gate agent. Your call on next steps. Brandon Cole was becoming increasingly uncomfortable as he realized the incident was attracting far more attention than he had anticipated. His own business dealings depended on maintaining a certain public image, and being associated with a viral discrimination incident could have serious professional consequences. "Look," he said to Officer Williams, "maybe we should all just calm down and work this out privately. There's no need for this to become a bigger deal than it already is." Victoria Blackwell was frantically typing on her own phone, likely trying to contact her husband's law firm or prepare her own defense for when the videos went fully viral. Her carefully cultivated image as a sophisticated socialite was crumbling as viewers around the world watched her true character on display. Derek Martinez grabbed his radio again, his voice now tinged with panic. "Operations, we need management at Gate 47 immediately. This situation is escalating beyond normal procedures." The response came back quickly. "Gate 47 Airport Authority is requesting full incident report. Media inquiries are coming in. Do not make any statements until management arrives." Emma's stream reached 30,000 viewers as major social media influencers began sharing her content. "You guys? This is absolutely wild," she continued her commentary. "The whole terminal is watching this. I've never seen anything like it. This woman has been nothing but calm and polite, and they're treating her like she's some kind of criminal." Maya watched the social media explosion with strategic satisfaction. Every share, every comment, every outraged reaction was building pressure that would make the eventual resolution impossible to ignore or cover up. She had learned long ago that sunlight was the best disinfectant for institutional discrimination. Jessica Palmer was visibly sweating now, realizing that her career might be on the line. "Mr. Martinez, maybe we should just scan her pass like she's asking, what if she really does belong in first class?" Derek shot her a venomous look. "Jessica, don't undermine my authority. We stick to our assessment regardless of outside pressure." Officer Williams was taking detailed notes and had called for backup, recognizing that the situation was evolving into something far beyond a simple boarding dispute. "Ma'am," he said to Maya, "given the level of documentation and the serious nature of the allegations, I recommend filing formal charges with the FBI Civil Rights Division." "I intend to," Maya replied calmly. "But first, I'd like to give Mr. Martinez one final opportunity to do his job correctly. Scan my boarding pass, confirm my seat assignment, and we can all move forward with our lives." Derek's pride and prejudice warred with his growing realization that this situation was becoming a career-ending disaster. The social media attention, the witness documentation, and the formal complaints were creating a perfect storm that could destroy everything he had built. But pride won over pragmatism. "I don't care who you think you are or how many people are filming," Derek declared loudly. "I run this gate and I decide who boards this aircraft. You're not getting on this plane." Maya's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. The patient strategy was over. It was time for the consequences to begin. She typed a single text message to Alex Rivera, "Execute Protocol 7. Full shutdown. Now." Officer Williams reviewed his notes while the crowd continued to grow around Gate 47. Word of the confrontation had spread through the terminal, and passengers from other gates were wandering over to see what was happening. The viral nature of the live streams meant that people who weren't even at the airport were calling friends and family at LAX to tell them about the discrimination incident going viral online. Maya stood perfectly still in the center of the storm, her phone in her hand, thumb hovering over Alex Rivera's contact. Everything depended on timing now. She needed Derek Martinez and Victoria Blackwell to commit fully to their position before revealing the truth that would destroy them both. "Mr. Martinez," Officer Williams said formally, "I need you to make a clear statement for my report. Are you denying boarding to this passenger? And if so, what is your specific justification?" Derek's chest puffed out as he prepared to make what he believed would be his moment of authority. 15 years of gate agent experience had taught him that passengers eventually backed down when faced with official resistance. He had no idea he was about to make the most expensive mistake in aviation history. "Officer, I am formally denying boarding to this passenger based on suspicious behavior, inappropriate documentation, and disruption of airline operations," Derek announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. "She doesn't meet the standards for first-class service, and I won't compromise the safety and comfort of our legitimate passengers." Maya's thumb moved to her text messages. The response to Protocol 7 would be immediate and irreversible. Once she sent that message, every Skybridge Airlines flight in North America would receive an emergency ground stop order. Hundreds of thousands of passengers would be stranded, millions of dollars would be lost, and the entire aviation industry would demand answers. But first, she wanted to give Victoria one more chance to reveal her true character. "Mrs. Blackwell," Maya said quietly, "you've been very vocal about your opinions. Would you like to make a statement for Officer Williams's report about why you believe I shouldn't be allowed to board this flight?" Victoria's eyes gleamed with vindictive satisfaction. She had spent the last 30 minutes being challenged and contradicted, and now she had an official opportunity to justify her position. Her wealthy privilege had always protected her from consequences, and she saw no reason why this situation would be any different. "Officer, I travel extensively for my husband's law firm." Victoria began, her voice taking on the authoritative tone she used when speaking to service workers. "I know what first-class passengers look like, how they dress, how they behave. This person clearly doesn't belong in that environment." Emma's live stream was now approaching 40,000 viewers as the story continued to spread across social media platforms. Major news outlets were beginning to pick up the story, with CNN, NBC, and Fox News all sending reporters to LAX to cover what was being called the Gate 47 discrimination incident. "She's doubling down," Emma whispered to her followers. "This woman is literally saying on camera that she can tell who deserves first-class service based on how they look. This is 2024 people. How is this still happening?" Sophie Kim was live tweeting the developments to her followers while simultaneously filming with her professional camera. Her travel industry contacts were already reaching out for exclusive interviews and additional footage. This story was about to become a major moment in the ongoing conversation about discrimination in air travel. Dr. Patterson had positioned himself where he could clearly hear every word while maintaining his recording. As a physician, he had taken oaths about treating all patients with dignity and respect regardless of their background. Watching Derek and Victoria's behavior violated every ethical principle he held dear. "Young lady," Dr. Patterson said to Maya, his voice carrying decades of authority from hospital corridors and medical conferences, "I want you to know that not everyone here shares their opinions. Some of us recognize discrimination when we see it, and some of us will support you when this goes to court." Brandon Cole was frantically texting on his phone, likely trying to distance himself from the incident before his own reputation suffered collateral damage. His business required maintaining relationships across diverse communities, and being associated with viral discrimination could destroy years of careful networking. Maya's phone buzzed with final updates from her team. Every piece of the puzzle was now in place. Legal documentation, witness testimony, social media evidence, news media, attention, and most importantly, clear admission of discriminatory intent by both Derek and Victoria. Alex Rivera's text was brief. "All systems ready. Legal team standing by. Press statement prepared. On your signal." Rebecca Torres followed with her update: security audit complete. Martinez has 23 unresolved discrimination complaints. Pattern established. Federal case slam dunk. Jessica Palmer was now visibly panicking as she realized the magnitude of what was happening. "Mr. Martinez, sir, maybe we should call corporate before making any final decisions. This seems like it might be a bigger situation than we initially thought." Derek turned on Jessica with fury. "Are you questioning my authority? I've been running gates longer than you've been working for this airline. I don't need corporate permission to maintain security and standards." Maya watched Derek's final act of hubris with clinical fascination. Every word he spoke was being recorded by multiple devices and broadcast to tens of thousands of people. His career wasn't just ending. It was being destroyed in real time for the world to see. Officer Williams closed his notepad with a decisive snap. "Based on my investigation, I find no legitimate grounds for denying boarding to Ms. Richardson. Her documentation is valid, her behavior has been appropriate, and the stated reasons for denial appear to be discriminatory in nature." Derek's face turned red with rage. "Officer, you're overstepping your authority. Airport security doesn't override airline operational decisions." "Actually," Officer Williams replied calmly, "federal law requires airlines to provide service without discrimination. If I determine that discrimination is occurring, I have the authority to intervene." Victoria stepped forward, her desperation making her reckless. "This is insane. You're all being manipulated by someone who's obviously a professional victim. She probably planned this whole incident to get attention and money." Maya looked directly at Victoria, her voice carrying a dangerous quiet that made several passengers step back instinctively. "Mrs. Blackwell, you just accused me of fraud and extortion in front of multiple witnesses and live cameras. I hope you're prepared to defend that statement in court. I'll defend it anywhere." Victoria shot back. "People like you are always looking for someone to blame for your problems instead of taking responsibility for your own situations." The terminal had gone completely quiet. Even the normal airport announcements seemed to pause as everyone processed what Victoria had just said. Emma's live stream comment section exploded with reactions as viewers around the world witnessed the blatant racism on display. Maya looked at her phone one final time. Alex Rivera was standing by. Rebecca Torres was ready. The legal team was prepared. The press statement was written. Everything was in place for a response that would transform not just this incident, but the entire culture that had enabled it. She typed 4 words. "Execute Protocol 7. Now." Maya's text message disappeared into the digital ether, carrying with it instructions that would trigger the most expensive 12 minutes in aviation history. But Derek Martinez and Victoria Blackwell had no idea that their world was about to end. They were too caught up in their moment of perceived victory to notice the calm certainty in Maya's eyes. Officer Williams Derek said with renewed confidence, "I want this woman arrested for trespassing, fraud, and threatening airline employees. She's clearly here to cause trouble, and I won't let her disrupt our operations any longer." Victoria nodded vigorously, her diamond bracelet catching the terminal lights as she gestured toward Maya. "Exactly. Some people think they can intimidate their way into getting things they haven't earned. It's about time someone stood up to this kind of behavior." Emma's live stream had reached 50,000 viewers, with major social media influencers now sharing her content across platforms. The comment section was a river of outrage as people around the world watched the blatant discrimination unfold in real time. "This is absolutely unbelievable," Emma whispered to her followers. "They're literally trying to have her arrested for asking them to do their job. I can't even process this level of discrimination in 2024. Maya remained perfectly still, her phone now silent in her hand. Somewhere in Richardson Global Holdings Operations Center, Alex Rivera was executing Protocol 7 with military precision. IT systems were activating. Legal teams were mobilizing, and press statements were being distributed to major news outlets around the world. Dr. Patterson stepped forward, his medical ethics training compelling him to intervene once more. "Officer Williams, I've been a physician for 40 years, and I've never witnessed such blatant discrimination against a patient. This woman has been polite, professional, and patient beyond any reasonable expectation. Dr. Patterson." "You're being naive," Victoria snapped. "Some people are very good at playing victim when they don't get their way. It's a learned behavior pattern. Brandon Cole checked his watch again, but his impatience was now tinged with genuine concern. Look, can we just resolve this quietly? I have meetings in Boston, and this delay is getting expensive. Derek grabbed his radio with theatrical authority. Operations, this is Gate 47. I am formally requesting law enforcement assistance to remove an uncooperative passenger who is disrupting flight operations and threatening crew members. Maya finally spoke, her voice carrying a quiet authority that seemed to fill the entire gate area. Mr. Martinez, Mrs. Blackwell, you've both made your positions very clear. You believe I don't belong in first class based on my appearance, and you're willing to have me arrested rather than provide basic customer service. That's exactly right, Victoria declared triumphantly. And I'm glad someone finally has the courage to say it out loud. Derek nodded in agreement. We have standards to maintain, and sometimes that means making difficult decisions about who really belongs in premium cabins. Maya's phone vibrated once with a simple text from Alex Rivera, Protocol 7 executed. Ground stop initiated. All flights terminated. Maya looked at her phone, then at Derek, then at Victoria. I want to thank you both for being so clear about your motivations. It makes what happens next much easier to justify. Emma's stream reached 60,000 viewers as news outlets around the world began picking up the story. #Skybridge discrimination was trending nationally, with civil rights organizations and travel industry advocates sharing the footage across their platforms. Sophie Kim was live blogging the incident for her travel industry followers, her professional photography capturing every moment for what she knew would become a landmark case study in discrimination and its consequences. Jessica Palmer was now openly crying as she realized her career was ending in real time. Mr. Martinez, please, can we just scan her boarding pass? Maybe there's been a misunderstanding. Derek turned on Jessica with fury. There's no misunderstanding. I run this gate and I decide who boards this aircraft. Anyone who can't support that decision can find another job. Victoria stepped closer to Maya, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper that was still loud enough for the cameras to pick up. You people always think you're entitled to things you can't afford. Well, not today. Today, someone is finally standing up for standards and decency. Maya met Victoria's gaze with calm brown eyes that revealed nothing of the storm that was about to break. Mrs. Blackwell, I want you to remember this moment. Remember exactly what you said and how you felt saying it. Because in about 30 seconds, your entire world is going to change. Officer Williams was reviewing his notes, preparing to make an official determination about the incident. Ma'am, I need you to... He was interrupted by a sound that every frequent flyer recognizes but hopes never to hear, the distinctive whine of jet engines powering down. Not just one engine, but multiple engines from multiple aircraft across the terminal. The sound was followed immediately by confused voices from other gates gate agents grabbing radios and the electronic chime that preceded airport-wide announcements. Derek's radio crackled to life with panic-tinged voices from operations control. All gates. This is operations. We have a ground stop order for all Skybridge flights effective immediately. Repeat, all Skybridge aircraft are grounded by executive order. Do not board any passengers. Do not start any engines. Await further instructions. Derek stared at his radio in confusion. Operations, this is Gate 47. Can you repeat that message? Gate 47, all Skybridge flights are terminated. Ground stop is in effect nationwide. Corporate will provide explanation shortly. Maya watched Derek's face go from confusion to dawning horror as he began to understand that something much larger was happening. Victoria was still too caught up in her moment of triumph to process the significance of the announcement. Now, Maya said quietly, "Let me properly introduce myself." The terminal-wide announcement echoed through LAX with the kind of authority that made every conversation stop and every head turn toward the nearest speaker. Attention passengers and airline personnel. Skybridge Airlines has implemented an immediate ground stop for all aircraft nationwide. All Skybridge flights are suspended pending further investigation. Passengers should contact airline customer service for rebooking assistance. Derek Martinez stared at his radio like it had personally betrayed him, his face cycling through confusion, panic, and dawning horror. In 15 years of gate operations, he had never heard of a company-wide ground stop that wasn't related to weather or national emergencies. Operations. This is Gate 47. Derek's voice cracked as he keyed his radio. Can you provide more details about the ground stop order? What investigation? The response came back immediately, but it wasn't from operations control. It was a voice Derek didn't recognize, speaking with the crisp authority of someone who was clearly in charge. Gate 47. This is Alex Rivera, Chief Operating Officer of Richardson Global Holdings parent company of Skybridge Airlines. The ground stop order came directly from our CEO following reports of serious discrimination incident at your location. All flight operations are suspended until this matter is resolved. Victoria Blackwell had gone completely white as the pieces began falling into place. Richardson, Global Holdings, she whispered, her voice barely audible above the growing chaos in the terminal. Maya stepped forward, her voice carrying easily across the gate area as passengers and crew alike turned to listen. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Maya Richardson. I am the founder and CEO of Richardson Global Holdings, and as of 18 months ago, the majority owner of Skybridge Airlines. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the normal airport background noise seemed to pause as everyone processed what they had just heard. Emma's live stream exploded past 70,000 viewers as news of the revelation spread across social media platforms. Dr. Patterson was the first to find his voice. My God, he said quietly. They've been discriminating against their own boss. Derek's radio fell from nerveless fingers, clattering onto the floor with a sound that echoed through the suddenly silent gate area. His 15-year career had just ended, and worse, he had ended it himself with every word of discrimination that had come out of his mouth. Jessica Palmer collapsed into a nearby chair, her clipboard forgotten as she realized she had just participated in the most documented case of workplace discrimination in aviation history. Her dreams of advancement in the airline industry had evaporated in real time. Victoria's carefully maintained composure had completely shattered. Her husband's law firm specialized in discrimination cases, which meant she knew exactly how devastating the legal consequences would be for everyone involved. This isn't possible, she stammered. You can't own an airline, you're just... Just what? Mrs. Blackwell Maya asked calmly. Please finish that sentence. I think Officer Williams would like it for his report. Brandon Cole was frantically typing on his phone, likely trying to contact his own lawyers or public relations team. Being associated with a viral discrimination incident could destroy his carefully built business relationships overnight. Officer Williams was staring at Maya with newfound respect and growing understanding of the situation's magnitude. Ma'am, I need to ask, did you deliberately allow this discrimination to continue in order to document it? I gave Mr. Martinez multiple opportunities to provide normal customer service, Maya replied. I asked repeatedly for him to scan my boarding pass, which would have resolved this situation immediately. Instead, he chose to escalate based on racial profiling and assumptions. Emma's live stream had become a historical document as viewers around the world watched the most powerful reversal in discrimination case history. Oh my God, you guys, she whispered to her followers. She owns the airline. This woman owns the entire airline, and they tried to kick her off her own plane. Maya's phone rang with an incoming call from Alex Rivera. She answered and put it on speaker so everyone could hear. Maya, this is Alex. Protocol 7 is fully executed. All 847 aircraft are grounded across 127 airports. Legal team is standing by. Press conference is scheduled for 30 minutes. Are you safe? I'm safe. Alex. Maya replied, her voice carrying across the gate area. Please patch me through to Rebecca Torres. A moment later, Rebecca's voice came through the speaker with professional calm. Maya, this is Rebecca. We've completed the preliminary investigation of Mr. Martinez's employment record. 23 unresolved discrimination complaints over the past 3 years, all involving minority passengers, all buried by middle management. Pattern of bias is clearly established. Derek had gone gray as he realized the scope of what was about to happen to his life. I was following company guidelines. I was trained to identify suspicious passengers. Show me those guidelines, Mr. Martinez, Maya said quietly. Show me the official Skybridge Airlines training that tells employees to discriminate based on race and appearance. Derek opened his mouth, but no words came out. There were no such guidelines, at least not in writing. The discrimination had been cultural, passed down through informal training and unspoken assumptions that certain types of people didn't belong in premium cabins. Sophie Kim was documenting everything with her professional camera, understanding that she was capturing one of the most significant moments in civil rights and aviation history. Her travel industry contacts were already calling for exclusive interviews and additional footage. Maya looked around the gate area, taking in the shocked faces of passengers, the devastated expressions of the airline employees, and the growing crowd of onlookers who had gathered to witness the aftermath of her revelation. For those of you who don't understand what just happened, Maya said clearly, I bought Skybridge Airlines specifically to eliminate the culture of discrimination that has plagued this industry for decades. Today's test was designed to identify exactly these kinds of problems so we could address them directly. Victoria found her voice again, though it was shrill with panic. This is entrapment. You deliberately set up this situation to destroy innocent people. Mrs. Blackwell? Maya replied calmly. I walked into this terminal as a paying customer with a valid ticket. Every word of discrimination came from your own prejudices and assumptions. I didn't make you say a single racist comment. Officer Williams was taking detailed notes, understanding that his report would become a key document in what would likely be federal civil rights litigation. Ma'am, for the record, you made no attempt to identify yourself during this incident. Officer passengers shouldn't have to prove their net worth or corporate position to receive basic customer service, Maya replied. The discrimination I experience today is the same discrimination that thousands of other passengers face every day. The only difference is that I have the power to do something about it. Captain Luis Morales had been watching the confrontation from the boarding door, initially confused by the delay, but gradually realizing he was witnessing something unprecedented in his 20-year aviation career. When he heard Maya Richardson identify herself as the owner of Skybridge Airlines, he immediately approached with the respect due to someone who literally signed his paychecks. Ma'am, Captain Morales said quietly. I'm Captain Morales, assigned to Flight 892. I need to apologize on behalf of everyone who works for this airline. What happened here is completely unacceptable. Maya nodded appreciatively. Captain, I need you to know that this incident isn't a reflection on the pilots or flight crew. This is a management and training issue that we're going to address immediately. Ma'am, if I may. Captain Morales continued, I've heard conversations among gate agents over the years that made me uncomfortable. Comments about passengers who don't look like they belong in first class. I should have reported it, but I wasn't sure who to trust with the information. Maya's expression sharpened with interest. Captain, would you be willing to provide a formal statement about those conversations? It would help us understand how widespread this problem really is. Derek Martinez was now sitting in one of the gate area chairs, his head in his hands, as the full scope of his destruction became clear. His radio lay forgotten on the floor, occasionally crackling with confused messages from operations control trying to understand why the entire airline had suddenly stopped functioning. Officer Williams approached Derek with official severity. Sir, I need you to understand that you're now part of a federal discrimination investigation. Anything you say can and will be used in civil and potentially criminal proceedings." Jessica Palmer was crying openly, her career dreams dissolving in real time. "Ms. Richardson, I'm so sorry. I was just trying to support my supervisor. I didn't mean to discriminate against you." Maya looked at Jessica with a mixture of disappointment and understanding. Jessica, following orders isn't an excuse for participating in discrimination. But I appreciate your apology, and how you handle yourself from this point forward will determine whether you have a future with this company. Victoria Blackwell had retreated to a corner, frantically making phone calls to her husband's law firm. Her carefully cultivated image as a sophisticated socialite was being destroyed across social media platforms as the viral videos revealed her true character to the world. Emma's live stream had reached over 100,000 viewers as major news outlets picked up the story. She was providing live commentary as the situation continued to unfold. "This is absolutely incredible. The most documented discrimination case in history, and it turns out the victim owns the entire company. This is going to change everything about how airlines treat passengers." Maya's phone buzzed with updates from her team. Rebecca Torres was coordinating with FBI civil rights investigators who were already en route to LAX. Legal teams were preparing federal lawsuits against both Derek Martinez and Victoria Blackwell personally, while also developing new training protocols to prevent future incidents. Alex Rivera's voice came through Maya's phone speaker again. "Maya, we're getting calls from CNN, NBC, CBS, Fox News, and about 50 other media outlets. How do you want to handle press inquiries? Schedule a full press conference for 2 hours from now," Maya replied. "I want to address this publicly and announce the comprehensive reforms we're implementing immediately." Dr. Patterson approached Maya with his phone in hand, displaying a recording app. "Miss Richardson, I documented this entire incident from a medical ethics perspective. As a physician, I'm trained to recognize discrimination and report it. This recording is available for your legal team." Maya shook his hand gratefully. "Dr. Patterson, thank you for speaking up when others remained silent. Would you consider serving on a passenger advocacy board we're creating to address these issues industry-wide?" Sophie Kim was live tweeting updates to her travel industry followers while simultaneously conducting impromptu interviews with passengers who had witnessed the discrimination. "This is going to fundamentally change how airlines train their employees," she told her followers. "When the CEO of an airline experiences discrimination on her own aircraft, you know the problem goes deep." Officer Williams completed his preliminary report and approached Maya officially. "Ma'am, based on my investigation, I'm recommending federal civil rights charges against both Mr. Martinez and Mrs. Blackwell. Their statements were clearly discriminatory and were made with obvious intent to deny service based on racial profiling." Maya nodded seriously. "Officer, I want to pursue those charges fully. This isn't about revenge. It's about establishing legal precedent that will protect future passengers from experiencing what I experienced today." Brandon Cole had been trying to blend into the background, but Maya addressed him directly. "Mr. Cole, you participated in this discrimination by making assumptions about my financial status and supporting the hostile treatment. How do you plan to address your behavior?" Brandon's face went red with embarrassment. "Ms. Richardson, I sincerely apologize. I was completely wrong, and I'll do whatever is necessary to make amends for my behavior." Captain Morales stepped forward again. "Ma'am, I need to ask what happens to our flight. The passengers are understandably confused, and I want to make sure everyone is taken care of properly." Maya looked around the gate area at the dozens of passengers who had been affected by the ground stop her decision had triggered. "Captain, every passenger on this flight will receive a full refund vouchers for future travel and compensation for their inconvenience. We'll arrange alternative transportation for anyone with urgent travel needs." The moral weight of her decision wasn't lost on Maya. Hundreds of thousands of innocent passengers were now stranded because of the discrimination she had experienced. But some fights were worth the collateral damage, especially when they could prevent thousands of future victims from experiencing the same humiliation. Rebecca Torres had assembled her digital forensics team in the Richardson Global Holdings Operations Center, where banks of monitors displayed real-time data from across the Skybridge Airlines network. The ground stop order had triggered automatic data collection protocols that would preserve evidence of every communication transaction and operational decision related to the incident. "Maya, this is Rebecca." Her voice came through the speakerphone at Gate 47. "Our forensics team has isolated Derek Martinez's employment records, and the pattern is worse than we initially thought." Maya put the phone on speaker so Officer Williams could hear the findings. "Go ahead, Rebecca. Everyone here needs to understand the scope of what we've discovered." Martinez has been employed with Skybridge and its predecessor airlines for 15 years. In that time, we've documented 47 discrimination complaints filed against him by passengers. 38 of those complaints involved minority passengers being denied first-class service, questioned about their ability to pay, or subjected to additional security screening based on appearance. Officer Williams took notes rapidly as Rebecca continued her report. "What happened to those complaints?" he asked. "That's where it gets interesting," Rebecca replied. 35 of the 47 complaints were marked as unsubstantiated or resolved internally without any disciplinary action. The pattern suggests institutional protection rather than isolated incidents. Derek Martinez, who had been sitting in stunned silence, suddenly looked up with desperate hope. Those complaints were investigated properly. I was cleared every time Maya looked at Derek with cold precision. Cleared by whom? Mr. Martinez Rebecca, who conducted these internal investigations. Rebecca's response was damning. The investigations were conducted by Martinez's immediate supervisor, Thomas Bradford, who was promoted to regional manager despite receiving numerous complaints about his own discriminatory practices. Bradford consistently found no wrongdoing by Martinez or any other gate agents under his supervision. Emma's livestream audience exploded with comments as viewers realized they were witnessing the exposure of institutional discrimination that went far beyond one gate agent. "Oh my God," she whispered to her followers. "This isn't just about one racist employee. This is about an entire system protecting discrimination." Sophie Kim was furiously typing updates on her travel blog, understanding that she was documenting one of the most significant civil rights cases in aviation history. Breaking digital forensics reveal pattern of discrimination protection at major airline. 47 complaints against single employee 35 dismissed without action. Maya's phone buzzed with an incoming call from her legal team. She answered and put it on speaker. "This is Maya." "Maya, this is David Chen from legal." She paused, remembering she couldn't use the name Chen. "Maya, this is David Rodriguez from legal. We've been monitoring the social media explosion and we're seeing something unprecedented. The hashtag Skybridge discrimination is trending worldwide with over 2 million mentions in the past hour." "What kind of mentions?" David Maya asked. "Passengers sharing their own stories of discrimination on Skybridge and other airlines. We're documenting hundreds of similar incidents, creating a class action case that could reshape the entire industry." Victoria Blackwell had been eavesdropping on the phone conversation, and she suddenly stepped forward with desperate aggression. "This is all fabricated. You're manufacturing a crisis to destroy innocent people and make money." Rebecca's voice came through the speaker with clinical calm. "Mrs. Blackwell, our forensics team has also analyzed your travel history with Skybridge Airlines. Over the past 4 years, you've filed 12 complaints against minority passengers claiming they made you uncomfortable or didn't belong in first class. Each complaint resulted in those passengers being moved to economy or removed from flights entirely." Victoria went white as she realized her own pattern of discriminatory behavior was being exposed. Those were legitimate safety concerns. Mrs. Blackwell, Officer Williams interrupted. Filing false reports to remove passengers based on race is a federal crime. You may want to contact an attorney. Dr. Patterson had been listening to the forensics report with growing horror. Miss Richardson, this suggests that what happened today wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a systematic campaign of discrimination. Maya nodded grimly. Dr. Patterson, that's exactly what this was. And now that we've documented the pattern, we can finally do something about it. Captain Morales stepped forward with his own revelation. Ms. Richardson, I need to tell you something. Last month I overheard Mr. Martinez training a new gate agent. He specifically told her to trust your instincts about passengers who don't look like they can afford first class. I thought about reporting it, but I wasn't sure it would make a difference. Maya's expression hardened. Captain, it would have made a difference. But the fact that you're speaking up now will help ensure this never happens again. Rebecca Torres's forensics team had been digging deeper into the Skybridge Airlines employee database, and what they found painted a picture of institutional corruption that extended far beyond Derek Martinez's gate operations. Her voice carried a new urgency as she delivered the next phase of her findings. Maya, we've identified a network of employees who have been systematically discriminating against minority passengers while providing preferential treatment to certain frequent flyers. The data shows coordinated behavior across multiple locations and management levels. Maya kept the phone on speaker, understanding that every revelation needed to be documented for the legal proceedings that would inevitably follow. Rebecca, how extensive is this network? We've identified 12 gate agents, 6 supervisors, and 3 regional managers who show clear patterns of discriminatory behavior. They've been sharing information about problematic passengers and coordinating to ensure certain people receive substandard service or are denied premium amenities. Officer Williams was taking detailed notes, recognizing that he was documenting one of the largest discrimination conspiracies in aviation history. Ma'am, this sounds like it could involve federal racketeering charges if there's evidence of organized criminal activity. Derek Martinez suddenly found his voice again, panic overriding his previous resignation. I was just following training. Bradford told us to be selective about first-class passengers. We were protecting the airline's reputation. Maya turned to face Derek directly. Mr. Martinez, show me the official training materials that instructed you to discriminate based on race and appearance. Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. There were no official materials because the discrimination had been cultural, passed down through informal networks and unspoken understandings that certain passengers didn't deserve premium service. Rebecca's voice continued through the speaker. Maya, we've also discovered financial irregularities. Several gate agents, including Martinez, have been accepting payments from passengers in exchange for upgrades that were supposed to be complimentary. They've been stealing revenue while simultaneously discriminating against passengers who couldn't or wouldn't pay bribes. Victoria Blackwell had been listening with growing horror, realizing that her own privileged treatment might have been part of the corruption network. That's impossible. I never paid anyone for special treatment. Mrs. Blackwell. Rebecca replied, our records show that your husband's law firm has provided legal services to Skybridge employees accused of discrimination. In exchange, you've received complimentary upgrades, priority boarding, and other benefits that weren't available to regular passengers. It's a classic quid pro quo arrangement. Emma's live stream had reached 150,000 viewers as news outlets around the world picked up the story. She was providing real-time commentary on one of the most significant corporate discrimination scandals in recent history. This is absolutely insane, she told her followers. We're watching an entire corruption network get exposed in real time. Jessica Palmer was sobbing in her chair, realizing that her career was ending not just because of today's incident, but because she had been unknowingly participating in a criminal conspiracy. I didn't know about any bribes or networks. I was just trying to do my job." Maya looked at Jessica with a mixture of disappointment and sympathy. "Jessica, ignorance isn't an excuse, but cooperation with our investigation might be a mitigating factor. Are you willing to testify about what you've witnessed?" Captain Morales had been listening with growing anger as he realized the extent of the corruption in his workplace. "Ms. Richardson, I want to help clean this up. I've been flying for this airline for 8 years, and I had no idea the gate operations were this corrupt." "Captain, your testimony about the discriminatory training practices will be crucial," Maya replied. "We need honest employees like you to help rebuild this company's culture." Sophie Kim was live blogging the developments for her travel industry followers, understanding that she was documenting a watershed moment that would change aviation industry practices forever. Breaking corruption network exposed at major airline. Employees taking bribes, coordinating discrimination, creating two-tier service system based on race and connections. Rebecca's voice came through the speaker again with another revelation. "Maya, we've found communications between Bradford and gate agents at other airlines. This network extends beyond just Skybridge. They've been sharing passenger blacklists and coordinating to ensure certain people receive poor service industry-wide." Officer Williams looked up from his notes with serious concern. "Ma'am, if this involves multiple airlines coordinating discriminatory practices, we're talking about a federal antitrust violation in addition to civil rights crimes." Dr. Patterson had been listening with the clinical fascination of someone who had spent decades studying human behavior patterns. "Miss Richardson, this explains why discrimination in aviation has been so persistent despite legal protections. It wasn't just individual prejudice. It was organized institutional behavior." Brandon Cole, who had been trying to remain invisible, suddenly stepped forward with obvious panic. "Ms. Richardson, I need to clarify something. I've never been part of any network or conspiracy. My comments today were just personal stupidity, not part of any organized discrimination." Maya studied Brandon's face carefully. "Mr. Cole, our investigation will determine your level of involvement, if any. But your behavior today suggests you were comfortable with discriminatory treatment, which raises questions about your own experiences as a frequent flyer." Victoria was now openly crying, her carefully maintained image completely destroyed as she realized the scope of legal trouble she was facing. "This is all a misunderstanding. I was just trying to maintain standards, Mrs. Blackwell," Maya replied coldly. "Paying bribes for special treatment while filing false complaints against minority passengers isn't maintaining standards. It's corruption and discrimination, and you're going to face the full legal consequences of both." Maya looked around the gate area, taking in the dozens of passengers who had witnessed the exposure of institutional corruption that had affected countless travelers over the years. This was bigger than just one incident of discrimination. It was a complete system failure that required a complete system response. Maya Richardson stood in the center of the gate area, surrounded by passengers, crew members, law enforcement, and the growing media presence that was documenting every moment of what had become the most significant discrimination case in aviation history. The weight of transformation rested on her shoulders, and she carried it with the quiet authority that had built her empire. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya began, her voice carrying easily across the terminal space. "What you've witnessed today represents a failure that goes far beyond one gate agent or one entitled passenger. You've seen the exposure of institutional discrimination that has plagued this industry for decades. Emma's live stream had reached 200,000 viewers, with major news networks now broadcasting her footage live on television. The hashtag Skybridge transformation was trending worldwide as people shared the story across social media platforms. Derek Martinez sat slumped in his chair, the full scope of his career destruction finally sinking in. 15 years of gate authority pension plans, health care benefits, and professional reputation had evaporated in the span of an hour. Worse, he was facing potential federal charges that could result in prison time. Victoria Blackwell had stopped crying and was now staring at Maya with undisguised hatred. Her privileged world was collapsing, and she was looking for someone to blame other than herself. "You orchestrated this entire situation," she hissed. "You deliberately set up innocent people for destruction." Maya turned to face Victoria directly, her brown eyes reflecting a steel that had been forged through decades of fighting discrimination. "Mrs. Blackwell, I walked into this terminal as a paying customer with valid documentation. Every word of racism and discrimination came from your own prejudices. I didn't make you say a single hateful comment." Officer Williams had completed his preliminary investigation and was preparing to make official determinations. "Based on my findings," he announced loud enough for everyone to hear, "I'm recommending federal civil rights charges against Derek Martinez for systematic discrimination and abuse of authority. I'm also recommending charges against Victoria Blackwell for filing false reports and participating in discriminatory behavior." Dr. Patterson stepped forward, his medical ethics training compelling him to address the broader implications. "Ms. Richardson, what you've exposed today isn't just about aviation. It's about how institutional discrimination operates in every industry where people in authority make subjective decisions about who deserves respect and service." Maya nodded appreciatively. "Dr. Patterson, that's exactly right. And that's why the response has to be comprehensive and permanent." Captain Morales approached with his crew members, all of whom had been watching the confrontation with growing understanding of the cultural problems in their workplace. "Ms. Richardson, speaking for the flight crew, we want to apologize for the environment that made today's incident possible. We should have spoken up about discriminatory practices we witnessed." "Captain, acknowledgement is the first step toward change," Maya replied. "But acknowledgement without action is meaningless. We need concrete reforms that will prevent future incidents." Sophie Kim had been conducting impromptu interviews with passengers who had witnessed the discrimination, creating a real-time documentary of public reaction to the incident. "The universal response I'm hearing," she told her followers, "is shock that this level of blatant discrimination still exists, combined with relief that someone with power is finally addressing it directly." Jessica Palmer approached Maya with obvious desperation, her career hopes requiring some form of redemption. "Ms. Richardson, I know I participated in something terrible today. Is there any way I can make amends and continue working for the airline?" Maya studied Jessica carefully, understanding that how she handled this moment would set the tone for employee accountability throughout the company. "Jessica, discrimination isn't a mistake, it's a choice. But your willingness to acknowledge wrongdoing and learn from it suggests you might deserve a second chance. That chance would involve extensive retraining, probationary status, and zero tolerance for future incidents." Rebecca Torres's voice came through Maya's phone speaker again. "Maya, we've completed the preliminary investigation of company-wide discrimination patterns. The data shows that minority passengers are 300% more likely to experience random additional screening seat changes and service denials compared to white passengers. This is organized institutional bias." Emma shared the statistics with her live stream audience, her voice filled with indignation. 3 times more likely to face discrimination. 300%. How is that possible in 2024? This is why documentation and accountability matter. Brandon Cole had been standing quietly in the background, but Maya addressed him directly. "Mr. Cole, you've been silent since the investigation began. Do you have anything to say about your participation in today's discrimination?" Brandon stepped forward with obvious shame. "Ms. Richardson, I was completely wrong to make assumptions about you based on appearance. I let my own biases control my behavior, and I'm prepared to face whatever consequences that requires." Maya appreciated the honesty, but wasn't satisfied with just acknowledgement. "Mr. Cole, consequences aren't enough. What are you prepared to do differently in the future? I want to donate $50,000 to civil rights organizations fighting discrimination in aviation, Brandon replied. And I want to use my business platform to advocate for passenger rights and equality in air travel. Victoria suddenly exploded with renewed fury. This is all performative. You're all pretending to be sorry because you got caught on camera. None of you would care if this wasn't going viral. Maya looked at Victoria with clinical interest. Mrs. Blackwell, you're absolutely right that social media attention changes how people respond to discrimination. But that's exactly the point. When discrimination happens in darkness, it continues indefinitely. When it happens in sunlight, it can finally be addressed. Officer Williams approached Derek with official authority. Mr. Martinez, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You're under arrest for federal civil rights violations and abuse of authority. As Derek was handcuffed, the reality of accountability finally struck home for everyone watching. This wasn't just about losing jobs or facing social media criticism. It was about criminal prosecution for discriminatory behavior. Maya's phone rang with an incoming call from Alex Rivera. She answered and put it on speaker for final coordination. Alex, what's the status of our press conference preparation, Maya? We're ready to announce comprehensive reforms, Alex replied. New training protocols, bias reporting systems, passenger advocacy boards, and federal oversight partnerships. We're also announcing a $50 million fund for discrimination victims and civil rights organizations. Maya looked around the gate area one final time, taking in the faces of passengers, crew members, and media representatives who had witnessed the complete exposure and resolution of institutional discrimination. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened here today was wrong, but how we respond to it will determine whether it ever happens again. The discrimination stops now. The culture of silence stops now. The protection of prejudice stops now. And the transformation begins today. Maya Richardson's words echoed through Terminal 6 as the full weight of institutional transformation began to take shape. What had started as a single incident of discrimination was now triggering the most comprehensive civil rights response in aviation history. Alex Rivera's voice came through the speakerphone with operational precision. Maya, we're implementing immediate changes across all 127 Skybridge locations. Every gate agent, supervisor, and manager is being called back for emergency bias training starting tomorrow morning. Operations are suspended until every employee completes the certification. Derek Martinez was being led away in handcuffs, his 15-year career ending with criminal charges that would follow him for the rest of his life. As he passed Maya, he looked directly at her with a mixture of fear and desperate regret. Ms. Richardson, I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Maya met his gaze steadily. Mr. Martinez, you meant every word of discrimination you spoke today. The only thing you didn't mean was to get caught. Victoria Blackwell was arguing frantically with Officer Williams as additional charges were being prepared. Her husband's law firm had already dropped her as a client via emergency phone call, understanding that representing her would create an untenable conflict of interest given their business relationship with airlines. This is persecution, Victoria screamed as she was also placed under arrest. I'm being targeted for expressing legitimate concerns about airline security. Officer Williams remained professionally calm as he read Victoria her rights. Ma'am, filing false reports and making discriminatory statements aren't expressions of security concerns. They're federal crimes. Emma Rodriguez had become the unofficial chronicler of justice in action, her live stream providing real-time documentation of accountability for discrimination. You guys, this is incredible, she told her followers. We're watching actual consequences happen in real time. People are being arrested for racism. This is what justice looks like. Captain Morales gathered his crew members to address them directly. Listen carefully, he told the flight attendants and ground crew. What happened here today represents everything we're going to change about this airline. Zero tolerance for discrimination means zero tolerance. No exceptions, no excuses. Dr. Patterson had been documenting the entire incident from his medical ethics perspective, understanding that he was witnessing a landmark moment in civil rights enforcement. "Ms. Richardson," he said, "I've been practicing medicine for 4 decades, and I've never seen institutional discrimination addressed this comprehensively and immediately." Maya's phone buzzed with updates from Rebecca Torres. "Maya, the FBI Civil Rights Division, is opening a full investigation of Skybridge Airlines and potentially other carriers. Your documentation today has provided the evidence they needed to trigger federal oversight of the entire industry." Sophie Kim was conducting interviews with passengers who had witnessed the discrimination, creating content that was being shared across travel industry publications and civil rights organizations. "What we're seeing," she told her followers, "is how one person's courage to document injustice can transform an entire industry." Jessica Palmer approached Maya with obvious desperation, her career future hanging in the balance. "Ms. Richardson, I know I participated in something terrible. I want to testify against the discrimination network and help identify other employees who need retraining or removal." Maya studied Jessica's face, looking for genuine remorse versus self-preservation. "Jessica, cooperation with our investigation is a start, but it doesn't erase your participation in today's discrimination. Your future with this company depends on proving you've genuinely changed, not just that you're afraid of consequences." Brandon Cole had been making phone calls to his business associates, likely trying to get ahead of the public relations disaster that would follow when his involvement in the incident became widely known. "Ms. Richardson," he said, "my company wants to partner with your civil rights fund. We're prepared to contribute significantly and use our platform to advocate for passenger equality." Maya appreciated the gesture but remained skeptical of motivations. "Mr. Cole, financial contributions are meaningful, but they don't address the underlying attitudes that made you comfortable with discrimination today. Real change requires examining why you made those assumptions in the first place." Alex Rivera's voice came through the speaker again with additional updates. "Maya, we're receiving calls from other airline CEOs who want to discuss industry-wide reforms. This incident is triggering conversations about discrimination policies across all major carriers." Emma's live stream had reached 300,000 viewers as major news networks picked up her footage for television broadcasts. "This is absolutely historic," she told her audience. "One woman's refusal to accept discrimination is changing the entire aviation industry in real time." Officer Williams completed his arrest procedures and approached Maya with official courtesy. "Ms. Richardson, I need to inform you that this incident will likely trigger federal investigations of other airlines and transportation companies. Your documentation has opened a much larger conversation about discrimination in travel." Maya nodded seriously. "Officer Williams, that's exactly what needs to happen. Discrimination flourishes when individual incidents are treated as isolated problems rather than symptoms of institutional bias." Captain Morales stepped forward with his crew to make a public statement. "As employees of Skybridge Airlines, we want to publicly apologize to Ms. Richardson and to every passenger who has experienced discrimination on our flights. We commit to being part of the solution rather than silent witnesses to the problem." Rebecca Torres called in with final updates on the immediate investigation. "Maya, we've identified 17 employees who need immediate suspension pending full investigation. The discrimination network was more extensive than we initially thought, but we have the evidence needed for comprehensive prosecution." Maya looked around the gate area, taking in the dozens of passengers who had been affected by the day's events. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to personally apologize to everyone whose travel has been disrupted by today's incident. Every passenger will receive full compensation, and we'll arrange alternative transportation for anyone with urgent travel needs." Dr. Patterson raised his hand to address the crowd. "If I may, I think everyone here has witnessed something historically significant today. Not just the exposure of discrimination, but the immediate comprehensive response to it. This is how institutions should handle failures of human dignity. Maya's phone rang with an incoming call from her legal team. Maya, this is David Rodriguez. We're ready to announce federal lawsuits against both Martinez and Blackwell personally, while also establishing the Victim Compensation Fund for anyone who has experienced discrimination on Skybridge flights. As Derek and Victoria were led away to face federal charges, Maya turned to address the media representatives who had gathered to document the incident. Today's events represent a fundamental transformation of how this industry treats passengers. Discrimination will no longer be tolerated, covered up, or excused. The change starts now, and it starts with accountability. Maya Richardson stood before the assembled crowd at Gate 47, understanding that this moment would define not just her airline but the entire aviation industry's approach to civil rights and passenger dignity. The transformation she was about to announce would ripple through every airport in America and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, Maya began, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had just demonstrated the power of strategic patience and documented truth effective immediately. Skybridge Airlines is implementing the most comprehensive anti-discrimination program in aviation history. Alex Rivera's voice came through the speakerphone with the operational details. Maya, the emergency board meeting is complete. We've approved your full reform package, $50 million for the Civil Rights Aviation Fund mandatory bias training for all employees, real-time discrimination reporting systems, and federal oversight partnerships. Emma Rodriguez continued her live documentation, her stream now reaching over 400,000 viewers as the story spread across global media platforms. You guys were watching history being made, she told her followers. This isn't just about one airline. This is about changing how the entire travel industry treats passengers. Dr. Patterson stepped forward to address Maya directly. Ms. Richardson, as someone who has spent decades fighting discrimination in healthcare, I want to offer my services to help develop your training programs. Medical ethics principles can be adapted to ensure dignity and respect in all customer service interactions. Maya smiled gratefully. Dr. Patterson, I'm accepting your offer right now. Would you chair our new passenger advocacy board? We need voices like yours to ensure our reforms have real impact. Captain Morales gathered the remaining Skybridge employees at the gate. Listen carefully, he announced. Everything changes starting today. New training, new accountability, new standards. Anyone who can't commit to treating every passenger with dignity and respect should start looking for other work immediately. Sophie Kim was conducting interviews with passengers who had witnessed the transformation, creating content that travel industry publications were already requesting for exclusive coverage. What I'm hearing from passengers, she reported, is overwhelming support for these reforms and genuine hope that travel discrimination might finally be addressed seriously. Jessica Palmer approached Maya with a formal written statement. Ms. Richardson, I've written down everything I witnessed about discriminatory practices over the past year. I want to cooperate fully with your investigation and prove that I'm committed to being part of the solution. Maya reviewed Jessica's statement quickly, noting the detailed accounts of bias training and informal discrimination protocols. Jessica, this information is valuable for our investigation. Your cooperation will be considered in determining your employment status, but it doesn't guarantee your position. Real change requires proving sustained commitment to equality. Rebecca Torres called in with updates on the broader investigation. Maya, we've been contacted by employees from 3 other major airlines who want to report discrimination patterns at their companies. Your action today is triggering an industry-wide examination of bias practices. Brandon Cole had been working his phone contacts, and he approached Maya with a concrete proposal. Ms. Richardson, my company represents over 200 business travelers annually. We want to establish preferred partnerships with airlines that demonstrate measurable commitment to passenger equality. Skybridge would be our first preferred carrier under the new standards. Maya appreciated the business commitment but remained focused on substance over gestures. Mr. Cole, business partnerships are less important than cultural change. But if you're genuine about using your influence to promote equality, that could have meaningful impact beyond just revenue. Alex Rivera's voice provided another update through the speaker. Maya, CNN, NBC, and CBS are requesting live interviews for their evening news programs. The White House has issued a statement supporting comprehensive aviation civil rights reforms. This is becoming a national conversation. Emma's live stream was now being broadcast on television networks as part of their breaking news coverage. "This is absolutely incredible," she told her massive audience. "We started with one incident of discrimination, and now we're watching the beginning of industry-wide reform." Officer Williams approached Maya with final documentation from his investigation. "Ms. Richardson, my report will recommend federal civil rights monitoring of all major airlines. Today's incident has provided the evidence needed to justify comprehensive oversight of industry discrimination practices." Maya nodded seriously. Officer Williams' federal oversight is exactly what this industry needs. Self-regulation has failed to address bias and discrimination for decades. Captain Morales received an incoming call on his radio, then turned to address Maya. "Ms. Richardson, I've just been contacted by pilots from 4 other airlines. They want to establish a Pilots Against Discrimination coalition to support your reforms industry-wide." "Captain, that's exactly the kind of leadership we need," Maya replied. "Employee advocacy is crucial for ensuring reforms are implemented effectively rather than just announced publicly." Dr. Patterson was taking notes on the organizational structure being established. "Ms. Richardson, the speed and comprehensiveness of your response suggests you had some of these reforms planned before today's incident." Maya smiled with acknowledgement. "Dr. Patterson, I bought this airline specifically to address discrimination and improve industry standards. Today's incident provided the catalyst to implement changes we've been developing for months." Sophie Kim was documenting the transformation process for travel industry audiences. "What we're witnessing," she reported, "is how effective leadership responds to discrimination: immediate accountability, comprehensive reform, financial commitment, and long-term structural change." Rebecca Torres provided a final update on the investigation scope. "Maya, the discrimination network we've exposed extends to 12 airlines and over 200 employees. The FBI is considering this a major civil rights investigation that could reshape transportation industry practices." Maya looked around the gate area, taking in the faces of passengers, crew members, and media representatives who had witnessed the complete transformation of how aviation discrimination would be addressed. "Ladies and gentlemen, what happened here today was wrong, but our response will ensure it becomes the last time such blatant discrimination goes unchallenged in this industry. We're establishing new standards, mandatory bias training for all employees, real-time reporting systems for discrimination, passenger advocacy boards with enforcement authority, and federal oversight partnerships to ensure compliance." Emma's audience was now approaching 500,000 viewers as the story continued to spread globally. "This is what accountability looks like," she told her followers. "Not just words or apologies, but actual structural change with real consequences for discrimination." Maya's phone rang with a call from the Department of Transportation. She answered and put it on speaker. "Ms. Richardson, this is Secretary Williams from DOT. We're prepared to establish Skybridge as a model program for aviation civil rights enforcement. Your reforms today could become federal standards for all carriers." Maya smiled with satisfaction. "Secretary Williams, we're honored to partner with federal authorities to eliminate discrimination from air travel. Real change requires government oversight and industry accountability working together." As the press conference preparations continued, Maya realized that Derek Martinez's refusal to scan her boarding pass had triggered the most significant civil rights transformation in aviation history. Sometimes the greatest changes came from the smallest acts of documented courage. Maya Richardson finally boarded her own aircraft, walking down the jet bridge toward Flight 892 with the quiet satisfaction of someone who had just changed an entire industry through strategic patience and documented courage. The Boeing 787 represented everything she had envisioned when she bought Skybridge Airlines premium service without prejudice, dignity for every passenger, and accountability for every employee. Captain Morales personally welcomed her aboard his crew, standing at attention with genuine respect rather than fearful obligation. "Ms. Richardson, welcome to your flight home. I want you to know that every crew member has committed to making this the standard of service every passenger receives regardless of appearance or assumption." Maya took her seat in one of the same seat Derek Martinez had insisted she didn't deserve less than 3 hours ago. The leather was exactly as luxurious as she had specified when designing the cabin, the amenities precisely as comprehensive as she had demanded, and the service exactly as dignified as she had envisioned. Emma Rodriguez had been given permission to continue documenting the flight, her live stream providing a historic record of Maya's first journey as the publicly known owner of Skybridge Airlines. "You guys, this is absolutely surreal," Emma told her followers. She's sitting in the same seat they tried to deny her on her own plane after changing the entire industry. Dr. Patterson had accepted Maya's invitation to join her in first class for the flight to Boston, where he would begin his role as chairman of the new Passenger Advocacy Board. "Ms. Richardson, I've been thinking about what happened today. The discrimination you experienced wasn't an accident. It was a test of character for everyone involved." Maya nodded thoughtfully as she settled into her seat. Dr. Patterson, the most telling aspect wasn't the discrimination itself, but how many people were willing to participate, enable or ignore it. Changing systems requires changing the culture that tolerates injustice. Her phone buzzed with messages from her team, providing updates on the transformation already taking place across the Skybridge network. Alex Rivera reported that over 3,000 employees were enrolled in emergency bias training with completion required before returning to passenger-facing duties. Sophie Kim was in the economy cabin interviewing passengers about their reactions to the day's events. The universal response was amazement that discrimination could be addressed so quickly and comprehensively when leadership was genuinely committed to change. "What I'm hearing," Sophie reported to her travel industry followers, is that passengers had resigned themselves to discrimination as an inevitable part of air travel. Today showed them it doesn't have to be that way. Captain Morales made a personal announcement over the aircraft intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Today's flight represents a new era for Skybridge Airlines and the aviation industry. Every passenger on board is here because they deserve dignity, respect, and premium service. That's our commitment to you not just today, but every day going forward." Maya smiled as she listened to the announcement, remembering her grandmother's words about dignity being something you carried with you rather than something others could give or take away. Today had proven that dignity, when combined with power and strategic thinking, could transform institutions. Her phone rang with a call from her mother, who had been following the story through news coverage and social media. "Maya, baby, I saw what happened today. I'm proud of you for standing up, but I'm even more proud of how you handled yourself with such grace under pressure." "Thanks, Mom," Maya replied quietly. "I kept thinking about Grandma's watch and everything she went through to create opportunities for our family. Today was about making sure her sacrifices meant something for future generations." Emma's live stream was capturing the peaceful atmosphere aboard the flight, a stark contrast to the chaos and discrimination that had preceded takeoff. "The difference is incredible," she told her viewers. 3 hours ago, this woman was being treated like a criminal for trying to board her own plane. Now she's receiving the service she always deserved. Dr. Patterson was reviewing the passenger advocacy protocols Maya's team had developed, impressed by the comprehensive nature of the reforms. These standards don't just address discrimination. They establish dignity as the baseline for all passenger interactions. It's exactly what the industry has needed. Maya pulled out her tablet to review emails from other airline executives, civil rights organizations, and government officials who wanted to discuss implementing similar reforms industry-wide. The ripple effects of today's incident were already spreading far beyond Skybridge Airlines. Rebecca Torres sent a final update as the aircraft reached cruising altitude. Maya, the FBI, has officially opened investigations of 3 other major airlines based on evidence we've provided. Your decision to document everything today has triggered the largest civil rights investigation in aviation history. As Maya settled back in her seat, watching the lights of Los Angeles disappear beneath the clouds, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From her grandmother cleaning office buildings at night to build a better future, to her own rise through corporate America, to finally having the power to eliminate the barriers that had tried to stop them both. Her phone buzzed with one final message from Alex. Rivera Maya passenger bookings are up 300% in the past 3 hours. Turns out, treating people with dignity is good for business, too. Maya smiled and put away her phone, finally able to rest as her aircraft carried her home through the dark sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, congressional hearings, federal investigations, and the hard work of rebuilding an industry's culture. But tonight, she was simply a passenger on her own airline, receiving the service every traveler deserved. The transformation was just beginning, but the foundation was already solid: accountability, dignity, and the simple, revolutionary idea that everyone deserved respect, regardless of appearance, assumption, or prejudice. The Richardson Global Holdings boardroom overlooked Boston Harbor, its floor-to-ceiling windows providing a view of the same waters Maya's grandmother had once crossed seeking opportunities in a new country. 3 months after the LAX incident, Maya sat at the head of the mahogany table reviewing quarterly reports that told the story of an industry transformation. "The numbers speak for themselves," Alex Rivera announced to the assembled board members, his voice carrying satisfaction that extended far beyond financial metrics. Skybridge Airlines has posted its highest customer satisfaction scores in company history, booking increases of 400% and 0 discrimination complaints since implementing the new protocols. Dr. Patterson, now permanently established as chairman of the Passenger Advocacy Board, provided updates on the industry-wide changes that had followed Maya's documented confrontation with Derek Martinez and Victoria Blackwell. 43 airlines have now implemented similar anti-discrimination protocols, and federal oversight has expanded to include real-time monitoring of passenger treatment patterns. Rebecca Torres delivered the legal update with professional satisfaction. Derek Martinez was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison and lifetime prohibition from employment in transportation industries. Victoria Blackwell received 12 months and substantial financial penalties. Both cases have established legal precedent for prosecuting aviation discrimination. Emma Rodriguez had transformed from college student to civil rights activist, her documentation of the LAX incident launching a career in social justice advocacy. She now served on Maya's advisory council, bringing the voice of everyday passengers to corporate policy decisions. The ripple effects continue expanding. Emma reported via video conference from Washington, D.C., where she was testifying before Congress about discrimination in transportation. My original live stream has been viewed over 50 million times, and it's being used in civil rights training programs across multiple industries. Sophie Kim had published a comprehensive investigation of aviation discrimination that won a Pulitzer Prize for public service journalism. Her work expanded beyond Maya's incident to expose institutional bias throughout the travel industry, triggering reforms at hotels, rental car companies, and cruise lines. The travel industry landscape has fundamentally changed, Sophie reported from her new position as travel equality correspondent for CNN. Companies understand that discrimination doesn't just create legal liability, it creates reputational destruction in the age of social media documentation. Captain Morales had been promoted to Vice President of Flight Operations with specific responsibility for ensuring crew training emphasized dignity and respect for all passengers. Our pilot training now includes comprehensive bias awareness education, and we've established anonymous reporting systems that ensure discrimination concerns reach executive leadership immediately. Maya reviewed reports from other airlines that had contacted Skybridge, requesting consultation on implementing similar reforms. The transformation is spreading beyond what we could have imagined, she told the board. American Airlines, Delta United, and Southwest have all established passenger advocacy programs modeled on our protocols. Jessica Palmer had completed comprehensive bias training and was now serving as a case study in employee redemption and education. Her transformation from discrimination participant to equality advocate demonstrated that people could genuinely change when provided with proper education and accountability. Jessica represents hope for institutional change, Dr. Patterson explained. Her willingness to acknowledge wrongdoing, learn from experts, and dedicate herself to preventing future discrimination shows that individuals can evolve even after participating in bias. The Department of Transportation had established new federal regulations based on Skybridge's reforms, with Maya serving as an advisor on policy development. Secretary Williams regularly consulted with her team on implementing passenger protection standards across all modes of transportation. Alex Rivera presented the financial impact data that proved discrimination was not just morally wrong but economically destructive. Airlines that have implemented comprehensive anti-discrimination protocols report average revenue increases of 25%, while carriers that resist change face declining market share and increased legal costs. Maya stood and walked to the windows overlooking Boston Harbor, thinking about her grandmother's journey and the path that had led to this moment of institutional transformation. 3 months ago, 2 people chose to judge me based on appearance rather than character. Their choice triggered changes that will protect millions of future passengers from experiencing the same discrimination. Rebecca Torres provided the final update on ongoing investigations. The FBI has identified discrimination networks at 12 major airlines, leading to criminal charges against 47 employees and civil settlements exceeding $200 million for affected passengers. Emma's voice came through the video conference with youthful optimism. Ms. Richardson, when I started filming that morning, I never imagined we were documenting the beginning of industry-wide transformation. Now, discrimination complaints are down 80% across all major airlines. Maya turned back to address her board with quiet satisfaction. The transformation began with documentation, continued with accountability, and will be sustained through constant vigilance. We've proven that institutional change is possible when leadership refuses to accept discrimination as normal. The transformation triggered by Maya Richardson's documented confrontation with discrimination extended far beyond aviation, creating ripple effects that reshaped customer service standards across multiple industries. Federal agencies, corporate leadership, and civil rights organizations had studied the Skybridge model to understand how one incident of strategic documentation could catalyze comprehensive institutional change. Congressional hearings on transportation discrimination had led to the passage of the Passenger Dignity Act, establishing federal standards for customer treatment across all modes of travel. Maya testified before both House and Senate committees, her calm recounting of the LAX incident, providing lawmakers with undeniable evidence of the need for legislative protection. The Skybridge incident revealed that discrimination in transportation wasn't isolated to individual bad actors, Senator Williams explained during the bill signing ceremony. It was embedded in training culture and informal networks that protected bias while punishing victims who spoke up. Hotels, rental car companies, and ride-sharing services had implemented similar anti-discrimination protocols after facing increased scrutiny from federal regulators and civil rights organizations. The business community understood that Maya's documentation had changed the legal and social landscape permanently. Dr. Patterson's Passenger Advocacy Board model had been adopted by 17 other airlines and was being studied for implementation in healthcare, banking, and retail industries. The key insight Dr. Patterson explained in his Harvard Business Review article is that accountability systems work only when they include real consequences and meaningful authority to enforce change. Emma Rodriguez had founded the Digital Witness Foundation, training young people to document discrimination and injustice through social media platforms. Her organization had assisted with over 300 cases of workplace bias, educational discrimination, and public accommodation violations. Social media documentation isn't just about going viral, Emma explained during her TED Talk that reached 12 million viewers. It's about creating permanent records that institutions can't ignore, cover up, or dismiss. When discrimination happens in darkness, it continues indefinitely. When it happens in daylight, it can finally be addressed. The business impact of the transformation had exceeded every prediction. Companies that implemented comprehensive anti-discrimination protocols reported increased customer loyalty, improved employee morale, and enhanced brand reputation that translated directly into revenue growth. Sophie Kim's Pulitzer Prize-winning investigation had expanded into a book deal documentary film and university curriculum development. Her work demonstrated how individual incidents of discrimination connected to larger patterns of institutional bias that affected millions of people daily. The Skybridge incident wasn't unique because of the discrimination Sophie explained during her National Press Club address. It was unique because of the response, immediate accountability, comprehensive reform, and strategic use of social media to create pressure for change. Federal agencies had established new oversight mechanisms based on the Skybridge model, with real-time monitoring of complaint patterns and mandatory reporting of discrimination incidents. The Department of Justice Civil Rights Division had tripled its staff dedicated to transportation discrimination cases. Maya's Civil Rights Aviation Fund had distributed over $40 million to discrimination victims and advocacy organizations, while also funding research into bias training and prevention programs. The fund's success had inspired similar initiatives in other industries. Financial restitution addresses past harm, Maya explained during the fund's first annual report presentation. But prevention programs address future protection. Both are necessary for genuine transformation. The international impact had been equally significant, with European and Asian airlines adopting similar protocols after facing pressure from passengers who had learned about their rights through social media coverage of the Skybridge transformation. Captain Morales's Pilots Against Discrimination Coalition had grown to include over 15,000 aviation professionals worldwide, creating an industry network committed to identifying and addressing bias before it escalated into public incidents. Educational institutions had incorporated the Skybridge case study into business ethics, civil rights law, and crisis management curricula. Students analyzed Maya's strategic response as an example of how leadership could transform crisis into opportunity for meaningful change. The lasting impact isn't just about aviation, concluded Dr. Patterson during his keynote address at the National Civil Rights Conference. It's about proving that institutional discrimination can be eliminated when leadership combines moral courage with strategic action and refuses to accept injustice as normal. The transformation that began with Derek Martinez's refusal to scan a boarding pass had become a permanent shift in how American institutions addressed discrimination bias and passenger dignity. As someone who spent years documenting stories of justice and transformation, I've never encountered a case that illustrates the power of strategic courage as clearly as Maya Richardson's experience at LAX Terminal 6. When I first heard about this incident, I thought it would be another unfortunate example of discrimination that would fade from public memory within a few news cycles. Instead, it became a masterclass in how one person's refusal to accept injustice can reshape entire industries. The most powerful lesson from Maya's story isn't about her wealth or corporate position. It's about her strategic patience and commitment to documentation. She could have revealed her identity immediately and avoided the humiliation entirely. Instead, she chose to experience the full scope of discrimination that countless other passengers face daily, ensuring that no one could dismiss the incident as isolated or exaggerated. What strikes me most profoundly is how Maya transformed personal attack into institutional change. Derek Martinez and Victoria Blackwell thought they were putting someone in their place, but they were actually providing the evidence needed to eliminate the discriminatory culture they represented. Their prejudice became the foundation of their own destruction and the catalyst for industry-wide reform. The documentation aspect cannot be overstated. Emma Rodriguez's live stream, Sophie Kim's professional photography, and Dr. Patterson's witness testimony created an undeniable record that institutions couldn't ignore or spin. In our current era of social media and instant communication, discrimination no longer happens in silence. Every act of bias risks becoming a viral moment that triggers comprehensive accountability. For anyone facing discrimination, Maya's example offers a strategic blueprint document. Everything remain calm under pressure. Seek witnesses and allies, and remember that individual dignity can catalyze comprehensive change. Her grandmother's watch symbolized the generational struggle for equality, but Maya's response demonstrated how power and principle could finally eliminate the barriers that had constrained previous generations. The business community learned an equally important lesson. Discrimination isn't just morally wrong, it's economically destructive. Companies that embrace genuine equality report increased customer loyalty, improved employee morale, and enhanced reputation that translates directly into revenue growth. Bias isn't just a civil rights issue, it's a strategic liability that smart leadership eliminates proactively. The transformation continues expanding beyond aviation. Hotels, restaurants, retail establishments, and service industries have all recognized that the social media age requires genuine commitment to dignity and respect. Companies understand that one documented incident of discrimination can trigger comprehensive federal investigation, criminal prosecution, and reputational damage that lasts for years. Maya Richardson's story reminds us that change happens when good people refuse to remain silent in the face of injustice. Her strategic courage created space for thousands of employees like Jessica Palmer to acknowledge their participation in bias and commit to different behavior. Individual transformation enables institutional transformation, which creates lasting protection for future generations. The watch Maya inherited from her grandmother now represents not just family legacy, but national progress. Sometimes the smallest acts of documented courage create the largest waves of permanent change. Maya's refusal to move to the back of the line moved an entire industry forward into a more just and equitable future. That's the power of standing up, speaking truth, and never accepting discrimination as normal.